Another point of confusion where people get really, really confused is the idea of moderate Muslims and extremists. Right. So this creates a lot of confusion, and I often get asked to talk about this. This whole thing comes up. Islam is Islam. It's indivisible. It's what it is. Now, people talk about, they provide different definitions, but this is very clearly defined, though, within the Sharia law, within Islamic sacred law. And again, anyone can look this up. We can provide the necessary references. People can look it up and read it for themselves. So we can provide the links. They can go to download the necessary sources, read them themselves. So within Islamic Sharia, there are two forms of Islamic obligation. Obligation within Islam is divided into what's called Fard al-Ain and the Fard al-Kifaya. These are personal obligation. Fard al-Ain is personal obligation as a Muslim, and Fard al-Kifaya is a communal obligation. Now, the practice of jihad, violent jihad, is Fard Kifaya, a communal obligation. There's even Quranic support for this, and I can get into this in detail now. Right now, I just want to give this overview. So they always talk about, well, it's only a small minority. Now, this also reflects one of the, it's called Tawriya. This is a form of Islamic deception. There are 6 forms of Islamic deception. Everyone talks about taqiyya. Taqiyya is not the only method of Islamic deception. There are 6 forms. The most common are Tawriya, Taysir, and Darura. Ease and necessity. I'll get into those as we get through this. But so violent jihad is Fard Kifaya. It's a communal obligation. It is compulsory. It is obligatory. It falls upon the community such that someone has to perform it. And if no one performs it, then the sin of non-performance falls upon the entire community, and they are all basically damned. So the small minority must always participate in this jihad. Okay, so in the dictionary, certainly jihad is defined as a struggle, but in the Sharia, it is a legal term, meaning warfare to establish Islam. Now, this is not common knowledge to most Muslims because they're attentive to their personal obligation, and this confusion gives cover to the jihadis. It means that they can operate. And so these are not extremists. These are Orthodox Muslims who are following the obligation of Fard Kifaya. This is not necessarily managed by, first of all, it's like distributed guerrilla warfare. Anyone at any moment can flip if they see a reason, and if they're the only one. In fact, if you go through the Sharia, they give the specifics. Under these conditions, you can then go and perform personal jihad. But also, the Sharia very clearly defines when and why and what. So, for instance, if we invade Muslim lands, then jihad becomes Fard al-Ain. All Muslims must fight back to force the invaders out. As in the Russians go into Afghanistan or America goes into Afghanistan, then jihad becomes Fard al-Ain. Everyone has to take responsibility. Also, there are multiple different kinds of jihad. There are numerous different kinds of jihad. I'll pause there.
If you are not familiar with these subjects, just listen until we cover them. We are going to be providing the direct primary sources for all of this. So, and that's kind of the point of this series is, just because it's contradicting what you've been told to believe or what you've specifically read, doesn't mean that the subjects that we're covering aren't in the official Islamic texts.
Actually, let me go to the Sharia, right? Now, and I will read to you the official definition of the word jihad within the Sharia. Okay, so I'll start with this. This is Quran 9:121. Of every troop of them, a party only should go forth. Right, so of every troop, because what happened was Muhammad would conduct numerous raids, and the people who knew the Quran were being killed. And he created a stipulation that not all the warriors who knew the Quran should die. So some should remain behind so that the Quran would be preserved, so that the teaching would be preserved. Now, if we continue, if we go to now, the most utilized, the most sold, the most common, the most popular Sharia manual in the world is called the Umdat al-Salik, which is also known as the Reliance of the Traveler. This is the most endorsed, the most highly authorized translation of the Sharia in the world, in the Sunni Islamic world. It is incredibly thorough. It's a very, very highly endorsed book. And I mean, I'm happy to start to, after this, to provide the sources, necessary links to see how highly this book is regarded. Even Al-Azhar University, you might remember that President Obama back in the day did did his speech in Cairo at Al-Azhar University, because that is the oldest and most highly regarded Islamic institution in the world. So Al-Azhar University endorses this book as completely authentic and completely in line with all of the stipulations of Sunni Islam. So Jihad, fighting for the cause of Allah, Jihad, chapter 9. Jihad means to war against non-Muslims and is etymologically derived from the word mujahada, signifying warfare to establish the religion. The scriptural basis for jihad, prior to scholarly consensus defined in B7, are Quranic verses such as, fighting is prescribed for you, Quran 2:216. Slay them wherever you find them, Quran 4:89. Fight the idolaters utterly, Quran 9:36. And such hadiths as the ones related by Bukhari and Muslim that the Prophet said, I've been commanded to fight people until they testify that there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. And the hadith reported by Muslim, meaning Sahih Muslim in the hadith, so to go forth in the morning or evening to fight in the path of Allah is better than the whole world and everything in it. And then it goes on to say, details concerning jihad are found in the accounts of the military expeditions of the Prophet, including his own martial forays and those on which he dispatched others. Okay, it says here he personally attended 27, some say 29 battles. He fought in 8, and various sources say that Muhammad personally killed 3,000 people. 9.1, the obligatory character of jihad. Jihad is a communal obligation defined in C3.2. When enough people perform it to successfully accomplish it, it is no longer obligatory upon others. The evidence for which is the Prophet saying, he who provides the equipment for a soldier in jihad has himself performed jihad. It then goes on, if you look at section C3.2, it defines the difference. A second distinction between obligatory acts is made on the basis of who is called to perform them. It then separates between Fard Ain and Fard Kifaya. And so that is there. And then if we continue, 9.8, the objectives of jihad. It says the Caliph makes war upon Jews, Christians, and Zoroastrians. He first invites them to enter into Islam in faith and practice, and to pay what's called the poll tax, which is actually tribute, called the jizya. And if not, he fights them.
Okay, well, I think that's pretty clear,
Yeah, that's Sharia law.
And you're not just reading only the Quran, you're going by the Sharia and the other texts as well that lay out
Correct.
The laws of Islam.
I mean, for instance, let's see. Let's look at Tabari. He is one of the most common, most highly regarded tafsir commentators, one of the people who provide exegesis. So let's look at Tabari 9:69. We are the helpers of Allah and the viziers of his messenger, and we fight people until they believe in Allah. He who believes in Allah and his messenger has protected his life and possessions from us. And one who disbelieves, we will fight him forever in the cause of Allah, and killing him is a small matter to us. Let me add one more passage. So just the people, let's look at the Sirah, which is Muhammad's biography. When Allah gave permission to his apostle to fight, the second oath of allegiance at Aqaba contained conditions involving war, which were not in the first act. Now, Muhammad's followers bound themselves to war against all and sundry for Allah and his apostle. And I think that that's pretty clear.